Welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Jamie Bertese. I'm the COO and CCO of Totango, and I'm delighted to have the opportunity to welcome you to our third CXO Summit event. We are going to hear from Kevin O'Kame, our SVP of Customer Success at Totango, and Stephanie Comardelle, the VP of Customer Experience, Success, and Solutions at Lucid. And they both have really interesting topics to share that I think are very pertinent to today's world and the challenges we're all facing. So let me just, without further ado, introduce Kevin and let him kick it off.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So I wanted to kick things off by framing out several areas that as CS practitioners, we're likely all racing to our advanced capabilities in. And they're all in this category of virtual organizations. So with COVID-19, there's been this forcing of an acceleration of a virtual organization. If you didn't have a robust capability to deliver your products and services in some remote fashion rather than face-to-face before, you've likely had a very busy past 6 months trying to create those capabilities rapidly and at scale. And so when face-to-face is not an option, it really forces the need to reimagine those delivery motions and also to optimize the process that you engage and deliver through. And some of you may have had models where on-site activity was actually the norm. So it might have been a high-touch group. You might have even had your CS team try and get badge access at client sites. And so creating this efficiency and higher engagement from high quality, high frequency digital interactions has now become more important than ever. And as those in-person interactions have really dwindled, the ease with which your clients can get value from your products and services has also started to increase in importance. And we see this driving higher levels of interaction with product organizations. And so CS teams are now more actively than ever, not only helping to give feedback on things like product design, but also participating in more meaningful ways to even co-design the right combinations of product, services, training, and CS capabilities, just to make sure that clients can get that rapid time to value without friction in that process. And so lastly, on building relationships. Building strong relationships can be difficult in normal times. And so now with all the pressures to deliver remotely, to engage remotely, really making sure that there's a high degree of interaction, that those strategic relationships with key contacts are managed, and that you have a focus on building these deep, meaningful relationships and creating strategic partnerships has become important. And the important part is to be able to do that virtually rather than through face-to-face interactions. And so after Stephanie concludes the talk about Lucid's customer success program and journey, we do want to have a discussion to engage around some of these topics. So more to come there, but if you have questions, you have something to contribute on one of those topics, whether it's advice or a practical story about something that's working in your program, we'd love for you to share that. And so with that, I'll turn it right over to Stephanie, who can share the Lucid story.
Thanks so much, Kevin. My name is Stephanie Comardelle, as Kevin mentioned. I'm Vice President of our Customer Experience team here at Lucid, and today we're going to talk about our approach to stakeholder management. First and foremost, we'll give you an introduction to Lucid. So I realize that some of you may know Lucid and many may not. We're going to talk through how we adapted our business model to the impacts of COVID-19, our approach and focus on stakeholder management and why this became so prevalent and important to us, how we scaled that approach, and just some considerations that we kept top of mind that likely you would want to keep top of mind as well. So without further ado, what is Lucid? So Lucid has a very simple, very forward-thinking approach and mission. We want to bridge the divide between global questions and human answers. We're headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. We were founded in 2010, and our team, we're about 400 strong. But how do we do that? How do we bridge that divide? So first and foremost, it's with our marketplace. Marketplace is our SaaS software offering, and it facilitates the programmatic exchange of information between a two-sided customer base. On one side, we have our buyers. These are our folks that are looking for information. They have questions that they need answered. And this could be market researchers, this could be brands, ad agencies, this could also be large consulting firms, just to name a few. On the other side, we have our suppliers. And our supplier mix, we represent over 250 different suppliers globally that has millions of individual respondents in each. And this could be through communities, this could be through panels, this could also just be groups that are ready to provide information. And the reason that this is so important is impact. So when we think about marketplace and we think about bridging that divide, it's providing the right answers to the right questions at the right time by the right individuals. And while that can sound tricky, the marketplace makes it seamless. It makes it seem so easy, but it's also a great experience for both sides of the equation. Some of the customers that we work with, you may recognize a few of these names: Nielsen, Google, Bain & Company, LiveRamp, HubSpot. This is just a representative sample of those folks on our buy side of the business that are always looking for information, asking questions, and they're leveraging the Lucid marketplace to get their answers. 30 billion. What this number represents is how many questions have been provided answers. We've united them through the market Lucid Place since 2010. But what this also represents is one of the key elements that makes our business model at Lucid unique. We are not only a SaaS offering that's competitive in this space, but we're also a transactional business. And what that means for us is, as we think about not only what we do, but how we do it, our Lucid values become front and center. This plays a big part in how we also approach our stakeholders, both internally and externally. When every interaction matters and every interaction has to have impact, you really want it to be through something that's central, that's the lifeblood of your purpose and how you operate. So curious learning, playing to win, build community, fearless, open. These are all key elements that not only enable us to engage our customers and stakeholders successfully every day, but it also prepared us for the challenges that COVID introduced to our business. So like many, I don't think that, anything that I'm about to talk about is unique to Lucid. I think we all went through this in one way or another. We really had to adapt our day-to-day for COVID. So what this meant was we went from a growth mindset to being focused on retention. We went from an on-site, as Kevin mentioned, as a primary mechanism to work with our customers and each other, to 100% remote. This was a huge cultural shift for Lucid. We went from investment to maintain. So all of the net new capabilities that we had planned for 2020, we very quickly shifted to maintain the capabilities that we have and assure that people are engaging them satisfactorily. And expansion to empathy. So as we approached retention, as we thought about our existing customer base, what really became paramount was not only that we needed to expand and that we wanted to grow the success of those customers for Lucid and for them internally, but that we needed to have empathy. We had to think about not only how we were going to work with them, but how we approached them, how we approached each other in our work with our customers and stakeholders. And that took several forms. It took several forms internally as well as externally. And one example that directly impacted our customers and our stakeholders could be seen in the campaigns we started to develop and run that essentially enabled them to know that we were here and we were listening. Take a look. It was super important in how we engaged our customers that we not only connected to Lucid's value proposition of enabling them the power to know the answers they needed, but it was also super critical that it enabled them to understand that we were going through it too. We wanted to know all the things that they wanted to know. It also enabled us to start to really focus not only on the challenges that COVID presented to us, but on our silver linings as well. We now had a renewed focus. Internally as a company, we had one single goal, which was not only to survive through COVID, but to thrive and to enable our customers to be highly successful. That also meant that we needed to truly understand who our stakeholders were at our customers, and we needed to know how to engage them successfully for what impacts mattered most to them. It also renewed a sense of speed. So we had started to slow down a bit as we wanted to speed up more and really start to scale the business. But COVID reminded us that we could act quickly. With renewed focus and with everyone moving in the same direction, speed became paramount. We had to act fast. And we also needed to have agility. And we were reminded once again that we could not only change to our customers' business needs and their ever-changing environment, but to our own. And we could pivot very quickly. And we did that through collaboration. So unbeknownst to us, we had been moving so fast, we had unexpectedly created barriers to how we work internally with each other. This created some barriers with our customers as well, depending upon which group you were engaged with, depending upon who you were working with, which office, which location, you might have a little bit of a different experience. Moving to remote enabled us to collaborate more effectively. It enabled us to level that playing field internally, which in turn gave us a better way to collaborate with our customers. We now had one unique way of working. And lastly, it enabled us to be more thoughtful. If you think about the campaign that I just showed, if you think about how you might have approached your customers differently, just being thoughtful and understanding what they might be encountering, it became truly empathetic to how we engage with each other. Internally, we became much more aware that we were all going through different things at our homes. But we also became very aware that all of our customers were going through their own set of circumstances, both personally as well as professionally. And that enabled us to truly, once again, get a renewed sense of focus on our stakeholders and assuring that every activity that we did do, every meaningful encounter that we had, truly had a positive impact towards their satisfaction, the return on the investment, as well as just their overall impression of how they were working with Lucid. So for us, stakeholder management was always on our roadmap for 2020. It was always a priority. It was just later in the year. What COVID did was it put us into hyper focus, hyper speed to get it done first and foremost. I'm wondering, is stakeholder management something that you're already doing? How is it important to you? So it looks like it's pretty much a part of how majority of us are or at least half of us are doing our customer success programs. It's a big part of our success. So what I want to share with you is, for us, again, if you think about the business model that I walked you through, where we are not only a SaaS offering, but we are a transactional business, where if you notice, I don't have key stakeholder management, I have stakeholder management. The reason why is because for us at Lucid, and most likely for you in differing ways, but the same way, is you have stakeholders across the organization. You have different personas, different accountabilities, different ways that you're working with them. So for us, the one thing that became crystal clear to us and that enabled us to really start to think about how do we mature, how do we grow, even during COVID, was that focus on how we manage our stakeholders across the customer base. And for us, that created a competitive advantage. It was a differentiator to how our competitors were working with their customers. And it also enabled us to, again, put the right focus and the right activities at the right time with the right effort. So we weren't wasting a single second of the day. And for us, it wasn't just about having satisfied customers. We wanted us to have customers that were maniacal champions for us, to amplify our reach within the existing customer base, as well as to their peer groups, their colleagues outside of their companies, so that we were amplifying reach to additional TAM. And it also meant that internally, we had everyone starting to work together. So when I think about the silver lining of collaboration, having a renewed focus on stakeholder management and the way that we work with stakeholders within our customer base, it allowed us internally to get in sync. It allowed us to work collectively and collaboratively towards their success and joint outcomes, rather than having it be a very disconnected experience. So internally, our employees and our teams had much better experiences, and then ultimately our stakeholders would as well. So when we thought about the approach, and we had stakeholder management, it was very loose. It was very dependent upon which region you were working with, which team, which office. We knew that, number one, we wanted it to be simple because we needed it to be unilaterally adopted. We needed everyone to adopt the new approach, the new mechanisms, and be consistent in how we execute it, because that would be, again, a consistent experience. So first and foremost, the most time needs to be spent identifying your stakeholders. It seems simple, but it's so important. Who should you engage and why? Why would they be in that group? And ultimately assuring that, again, it's not just your key stakeholders, all stakeholders, you're understanding not only who they are, why you should engage them, but ultimately their business needs and expectations. So how should you be engaging them, and when, with what frequency, what mechanisms? This led into the second piece for us. And again, keeping it super simple. We were able, with this new information from the first step, to segment, logically group our customers so that we could start to also think about, if these are our customer groupings, what have we done in the past to engage them? What kind of touch points? How frequently? How often? What were they? What was the activities? And ultimately, it helped us to inform, what do we do next? Adopt and continue what was already working, but also adapt for other considerations and other things that maybe wasn't working as well, or that we wanted to expand into. And then now that we had that, it enabled us to define and standardize engagement plans. So we really wanted consistency. We wanted to be able to onboard and execute internally very quickly, but we wanted consistency in how the customers experienced working with us, especially through through the lens of stakeholders. So we had two main types of engagement plans that came to bear: personal and direct, general and indirect. And we developed a very simple engagement framework that we'll walk through in a second, to just kind of help us, now that we had segments, we had a plan, how do we want to assure the outcomes? How do we work with them? And what this did was, it enabled us to execute our engagement. Once we had our plans and we had our framework, we could then formalize our segments. Again, those groupings of customers. We could build our success plays through the forms of the success blocks for consistent execution. And we could also start to think about how we structure our campaigns in meaningful ways with the new messaging and in alignment to a digital strategy. And lastly, but definitely not least, is assuring that we had a way to measure success. So assuring that we had the right reporting. We were thinking through the scorecards, not only through the lens of customer health and the success of the engagement, but also giving ourselves an internal rating. How are we doing? How are we performing in how we engage with our customers? So this became super critical. Segmenting, knowing who your stakeholders are, thinking about what's important to them, their expectations, their needs. When you look and you map it on two axes, influence and expectations are the two critical path items. So when you think about it and you think about your stakeholders, the first that comes to mind for me is what is the outcome that we want to get to, and how do we want to engage for that outcome? So when you have stakeholders that are low influence and low expectations, these are your stakeholders that really you just want to monitor their progress. You want to have a general direct digital strategy that can reach out to them with upcoming campaigns, webinars, any type of announcement, but it can be indirect contact. It could be through email, it could be through webinars, it could be in an automated fashion through campaigns, but it can be indirect. When you have your low influence, high expectations, these are the ones that you want to keep informed. You really want to have, again, that general digital strategy that they can partake and get benefit from. But not only do you have indirect contact, you really need to have a mechanism for direct. More than likely, these are your everyday users that are in your technology, in your platform, your software. They are your process users that ultimately you need to make sure you have a way to answer just-in-time questions or issues that arrive. A lot of times, these are your emerging power users. These are the ones that are using your product so frequently, you want to be responsive to their needs and you want them to be aware of what's coming. They'll ultimately likely move into one of your top quadrants, which is high influence, low expectations. These are your customers that you want to keep satisfied. You have a more personalized digital strategy, which means you probably have specific personas and outcomes for that persona that you're creating a more streamlined and specific digital strategy for them. You're also having direct contact. This can align very nicely with your service levels for your customer success outcomes holistically, but it's probably going to be delineated by frequency. So you may have a mix of email and automated campaigns and communications, but you're likely going to have some measure of touch points in there, whether it's virtual, in person, or even just a phone call. And lastly, you have your high influence, high expectations. These are your customers that you want to manage closely. You're probably going to have, in addition to a personalized digital strategy, you're also going to have personal outreach. And you're also going to have much more frequent direct contact. These are likely your customers that you're doing, frequent business reviews. You're also assuring that you're just in time answering their needs. These are your high maintenance peeps. These are the ones that really consume a lot of your time, but also offer some of your best opportunity. The other benefit of this engagement framework that started to emerge was the internal lens. Now that we had our external stakeholders identified and we have the outcomes and the type of relationships and engagements we want to have with them, we could literally start to put our internal stakeholders into the same framework and assuring again that we're all on the same page. We all understand who's accountable, who's responsible, when we're engaging, when we're not. It created a better fabric for communication, which ultimately gives our customers a better experience. So considerations. These are some of the things that as we were working through stakeholder management and also just other customer success plays that we needed to assure we were consistent in executing. First thing we wanted to consider was compliance. Assuring that we understand legal regulations and laws around privacy and data collection. With stakeholder management, just like any other form of account activities, you're likely collecting information on those stakeholders and data, so you need to assure that you're within your legal rights or you have their permission. The other piece is depth. You want to assure that you've identified a comprehensive list of your stakeholders, your types of stakeholders, and again, that you've captured their expectations in detail. If you don't, you can have the best laid plans, but more than likely, you're still going to miss the mark. Experience. We all have probably, to some degree, mapped our customers' experience. We've identified along the way moments that matter, which are the moments that we celebrate with our customers, the moments of truth, which is where we share with customers how they're doing as compared to others like them. Or this could also be sharing how we're doing in alignment to their expectations. And then you have moments of value. This is truly where you tangibly want to show back that return on investment to customers and how you're answering the outcomes and meeting expectations for the value proposition that they signed up to. You want to make sure that your engagement plan aligns well with all of the milestones and moments along your experience map. That way, again, you're not duplicating efforts, you're coordinated, and you're celebrating when you should, you're showing back when you should, and everyone is on the same page. Transparency, assuring you can measure how successful your outcomes of your engagement plans are. Are they having the intended impact? Do you see satisfaction scores increasing? Do you see stickier adoption? Evaluate and improve for improvement frequently. So once you have it, don't just stop. You should always be thinking about, how do I continually improve upon the way I'm engaging my stakeholders? And then lastly, gathering feedback along the way. This is super critical, not only from your customers, but also from your internal stakeholders that are delivering that engagement to your customers. The other piece that I just wanted to highlight before I turn it back over to Jamie is key success factors for Lucid. You know, when we first went down the path of customer success, we definitely wanted innovation and technology, and that needed to help us collaborate across all of the different teams and functions that are working with our customers. We had a lot of missed handshakes, we had a lot of missteps because we didn't have that connectivity that we needed. We also wanted operational efficiencies, and we wanted to have best practices and support for that, meaning we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We wanted to work with someone and with technology that had this already innately built in, that we could immediately adopt versus adapt and start to leverage for success of our own. And we wanted a voice and priorities. We wanted to be a strategic partner to the person that and the teams that we were working with. We ultimately, you know, we wanted our priorities to be part of their priorities. And we wanted a solution that gave us the empowerment and enabled our #1 goal, which was not only successful customers, but successful teams that were working to support and provide success to our customers. And so for all of those reasons, we went through a pretty intensive proposal process and RFP. And ultimately, Totango is our technology platform at Lucid. We feel very blessed. We feel very fortunate to have a strategic partnership with them. They listen. Ultimately, they partner to drive our success. And most importantly, they scale. So they enable us to do more than we ever could have imagined if we didn't have them as part of our technology stack. And with that, thank you so much for your time today and for listening, and I'll turn it back over to Jamie.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. That was wonderful. Kevin, did you want to say a few words about stakeholder management?
I'll just jump in briefly to say that just given the topic, and from the poll that Stephanie had put up there, happened to notice about 45% it looked like of attendees had not yet really started on this journey, but we're looking for a way to get started. And about half of attendees were doing it, but might benefit from some other practices. So just wanted to announce that next week we're going to be launching in our Totango marketplace a success block around stakeholder management. And so this is going to be a comprehensive success block that's really going to be focused on the three things listed in the slide: capturing and tracking engagements with stakeholders, analyzing those engagements so you can get great insights and make sure that you are learning and improving performance. And then in particular, being able to take action. So seeing that ahead of time before there's some detrimental event, but also to be able to spot opportunities and maximize those. So You can check that out in the Success Block Marketplace. And Jamie, maybe we'll pass it back to you.
So one more thing I'll just mention on that, for those who are less familiar with Totango, for the customers who are currently on the phone, you can just go in, and download the Stakeholder Management Success Block and start using that. Of course, the customer success team here at Totango will be happy to work with you on the best practices and get that all implemented with you and for you.